Throughout history, many cultures have passed down legends, and most legends are indeed based on an element of truth. The legend of the Thunderbird is no different. Described as a supernatural creature, the enormous bird symbolized power and strength that protected humans from evil spirits. It was called the Thunderbird because of the flapping of its powerful wings sounded like thunder, and lightning would shoot out of its eyes. The Thunderbirds brought rain and storms, which could be good or bad. Good when the rain was needed, or bad when the rain came with strong destructive winds, floods, and fires caused by the lightning. The bird was said to be so large that several legends say it picked up a whale in its talons. They were said to have bright and colorful feathers, sharp teeth, and claws. They were said to live in the clouds, high above the tallest mountains. But is there any truth to the Thunderbird legend? On October 26, 1890, the newspaper, the Tombstone Epitaph, published an incredible article of 6 gunslingers shooting a Thunderbird right out of the sky. 134 years later, the legend lives on. So what did the cowboys actually shoot down? Is there any evidence to support their claim? What was the Tombstone Thunderbird? And is it still alive today? Let's try and find out.
Hello, I'm Mike Droberg, Marine Corps veteran and filmmaker, and we will try to answer these questions on today's episode of Forgotten History.
The Thunderbird is a legendary creature particular to Native American people's history and culture, and is frequently depicted in the art, songs, and oral histories of many Pacific Northwest coast cultures. But it is also found in various forms among some peoples of the American Southwest, East Coast of the United States, Great Lakes, and the Great Plains. Yet the most renowned encounter with the Thunderbird occurred in 1890 in the Desert Expanse, or what was then known as the Arizona Territory. 2 cowboys experienced a strange confrontation that has been recounted with varying details, but the essence of the tale remains consistent. They witnessed a colossal, bird-like creature in flight, dispatched it with their rifles, and transported its magnificent remains back to town. The report in the April 26, 1890 Tombstone epigraph listed the creature's wingspan at an alarming 160 feet, and noted that the bird was about 92 feet long and had a head that was 8 feet long. The beast was said to have no feathers, but a smooth skin and wing flaps composed of a thick and nearly transparent membrane, easily penetrated by a bullet. Sounds like a typical tall tale of the Wild West, and that's probably what it was, but it apparently does contain a kernel of truth. In 1970, Harry McClure claimed that as a boy he knew the 2 cowboys from the story later in their lives, and they had told him a different version of the events. McClure said that the giant bird they saw in the desert actually had a wingspan of more like 20 to 30 feet, much more reasonable than 160 feet, but still enormous. The 2 riders shot at the creature, but it was out of the range. Their spooked horses refused to chase it, so the men rode into town empty-handed, carrying only news of the one that got away. They never shot it down, they never killed it, and it flew away. The cowboy sighting was spared from fading into obscurity by its inclusion in the 1930 book, On the Old West. In 1963, writer Jack Pearl discovered the story and breathed new life into it with an article in the adventurous men's magazine, Saga. Building on the already intriguing epigraph report, Pearl skillfully exaggerated the encounter, crafting a gripping tale titled Monster Bird That Carries Off Human Beings. Pearl described the witnesses as 2 prospectors who killed the bird and proudly show off their trophy in Tombstone. Pearl also added some extra conflict by telling of how a second Thunderbird snatched up a heckler who had ridiculed the prospectors and flew away with them in his talons. But Pearl's most significant change was this. He said that the epigraph newspaper story had run with a photograph of the giant bird's carcass nailed up to a wall with its mighty wingspan unfurled, and a number of men posing next to it for scale. This part of the legend, the Thunderbird photo, has taken on a life of its own. Pearl's fictional account of a photograph of Old West settlers with a big dead bird was picked up and repeated time and again, multiplying and evolving just as it had before Pearl ever got hold of it. Stories alone would not suffice as facts, but how can these images be explained? Well, they can't, if you agree with modern science that such creatures went extinct millions of years ago. Keep in mind that photography was still in its infancy, and trick photography was unheard of. Experts have long examined these photos, and to this day cannot explain them. The pterodactyl comes from the Greek word pterodactylus, meaning winged figure, which is an apt description of its flying apparatus. The primary component of the wings of the pterodactyl and other pterosaurs were made up of a skin and muscle membrane that stretched from the animal's highly elongated fourth fingers over the hands to the hind limbs. The reptiles also had membranes running between the shoulders and wrists, possibly incorporating the first three fingers of the hand. And some groups of the pterosaurs had a third membrane between its legs, which may have connected to or incorporated a tail. Early research suggested pterosaurs were cold-blooded animals that were more suited to gliding than active flying. However, scientists later discovered that some pterosaurs had a furry coat consisting of hair-like filaments, suggesting they were warm-blooded and generated their own body heat. What's more, in a 2010 study in the journal PLOS ONE, suggested pterosaurs had powerful flight muscles, which they could use to walk as quadrupeds, like vampire bats, and vault into the air. It is theorized that once airborne, the largest pterosaurs could reach speeds of over 67 miles per hour for a few minutes, and then glide at cruising speeds of about 56 miles per hour. Modern Bigfoot researcher and cryptozoology author Loren Coleman wrote about a series of Thunderbird sightings. The first one being on April 10, 1948, where three individuals in Overland, Illinois spotted what they originally thought to be a passing plane, but after seeing a large set of flapping wings, they realized this plane was something different. A few weeks later in Alton, Illinois, a man and his son saw what they described as an enormous bird with a body shaped like a naval torpedo. The creature was flying at least 500 feet and cast a shadow the same size as a small passenger airplane. Similar sightings around the time in St. Louis, Missouri, prompted residents to write concerned letters to the then St. Louis Mayor Alois P. Kaufman, demanding that the city do something about these reportedly huge birds. The mayor instructed the administrative assistant to set a trap to catch one of these creatures. But when blue heron tracks were discovered on the island in the Merrimack River, the mystery was considered solved. Among the most controversial reports is a July 25, 1977 account from Lawndale, Illinois. About 9 p.m., a group of 3 boys were playing in a residential backyard. 2 large birds circled over and then chased the boy. 2 escaped unharmed, but the third boy, 10-year-old Marlon Lowe, did not. One of the birds reportedly clamped on his shoulders with his claws, then lifted the terrified Lowe about 2 feet off the ground, carrying him some distance. Lowe fought against the bird, which eventually released him. The descriptions given by these witnesses match that of the Andean condor, a large blackbird with a white ringed neck and a wingspan of up to 10 feet. Then, in 2002, the sighting of a large bird-like creature with a wingspan of around 14 feet was reported in Alaska. The Anchorage Daily News reported witnesses describing a creature like something out of the movie Jurassic Park. Scientists suggested the giant bird may have simply been a stellar sea eagle, which have a wingspan of 6 to 8 feet. Some cryptozoologists have theorized the ancient Thunderbird myth may be based on sightings of real animals with a mistaken assessment of its apparent size. Cryptozoologists also posit that the Thunderbird was associated with storms because they follow the drafts to stay in flight, not unlike the way a modern eagle rides mountain upcurrents. John A. Keel claimed to have mapped several Thunderbird sightings and found that they corresponded chronologically and geographically with storms moving across the United States. Stranger still is that there is one genus of extinct birds from the Americas that has been named Rontornis, whose name literally means thunderbird. However, few, if any, cryptozoologists regard this bird as the origin of the thunderbird because it can't fly. So what are your thoughts on the Tombstone Thunderbird? Let us know in the comments below.
Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or show ideas, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again.